All right, Shalom Israel, Shalom, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all honor and glory to the Most High God Yahweh, who the world will call God, and I do so in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world will call Jesus Christ, right? This is a Warrior. This is my channel, Rise of Israel. Lord willing, this edifying video through the Spirit, but I want to do a quick video going into the 7 prophetic reasons why we're in the last days today. And I just want, it should be relatively quick, but I'm going to kind of build this up a little bit, just showing the point for anybody that may not understand why it is that we believe we're Israelites. And we're going to start that in the book of Exodus, right? So, the book of Exodus, chapter 1 and verse 11, it says this. Let's start at verse 1. It says this. Now these are the names of the children of Israel which came into Egypt. Every man in his household came with Jacob, right? So we understand this is talking about the Israelites, right? So let's start at verse 9, and it says this. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. This is a time period where you see that the children of Israel were held captives in the land of Egypt. And this is how it started, right? Because at one point they were like guests, right? So let's keep reading. Come and let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies, and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Therefore they did set over them taskmasters. A taskmaster is a slave master. It is the old English way of saying slave master. That's what taskmaster is, right? To afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramesses. Now I'm gonna see if taskmasters just pop up in the dictionary. Let me see. Okay, taskmaster, a person who imposes a harsh or onerous workload on someone. He was a hard taskmaster, right? This is pretty much what you would call a slave master. It's the same thing. They put a harsh workload on the people, and this is what you see the children of the Egyptians doing to the Israelites, right? So let's keep going. Therefore did they set over them taskmasters to afflict them with burdens, and they built for Pharaoh treasured cities, Pithom and Ramesses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the fields. All their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor. So you see the foundation of the children of Israel, really being a nation, was really growing up in slavery as a nation of people, and that's how they were known as a nation. They were known as slaves to the Egyptians, right? So then when you go to chapter 3, and you see the angel of the Lord speaking to Moses, you see the conversation and a concept of deliverance being spoken of, right? So when you start at verse 6, it says, Moreover, he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. Right? So the Lord is looking down at the affliction of the children of Israel being afflicted by the Egyptians, and he sees that these slave masters are above them, that they're crying by reason of their bondage, right? We understand that this is the type of this is the introduction with the Israelites to the Most High, right? And let's keep going. Let me see. In verse 8 it says, And I am come down to deliver them out of the land of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of the land unto a good land and a large, unto the land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel has come unto me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppressed them. Come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. Right? So now we see that the concept of deliverance first being shown in the scriptures is by the Most High God saving the children of Israel out of the hand of the Egyptians, right? And we're going to go more onto this, right? So let's keep going. So now when you get to the book of Deuteronomy, you start seeing things like, first let's start at verse 1. Deuteronomy 1. In 1 it says, "These be the words which Moses spake unto all Israel on this side of Jordan in the wilderness, in the plain over against the Red Sea, between Paran and Tophel and Laban and Hazereth and Dizahab." So we understand that everything being spoken is to the Israelites from this point forward in regards to judgments, laws, and statutes, right? So let's jump to chapter 7. It says this, right? Deuteronomy 7:6, "For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all the people of the earth," right? Here's the point. "The Lord did not set his love upon you, nor choose you, because ye were more in number than any people, for ye were the fewest of all people." So we understand that the Most High God exalted the children of Israel above all people in the face of earth, but he did not do this for anything mighty of the children of Israel in any way, shape, or form, but because of the promise he made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? But because the Lord loved you, and because he would keep the oath which he had sworn unto your fathers, which the Lord brought you out with a mighty hand, and redeemed you out of the house of bondmen, from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, right? And this is what he says. "Know therefore that the Lord thy God, he is God, the faithful God, which keepeth covenant and mercy with them that love him, and keepeth his commandments to 1,000 generations." So we understand that the Most High God made a covenant with the children of Israel, right? And he goes on to speak about it. Actually, if we go back to Deuteronomy chapter Deuteronomy chapter 5, I think this might be it. Let me see. Alright, verse 2. And it says this: "The Lord our God made a covenant with us in Horeb. The Lord made not this covenant with our fathers, but with us, even us, who are all of us here alive this day. The Lord talked with you face to face in the mount out of the midst of fire," right? So we understand that the Most High God is making a covenant with the children of Israel, right? So now when you jump to Deuteronomy chapter 30, or let's go to verse 28, you see that the Most High God puts blessings and curses before the children of Israel, right? And it says this: "And it shall come to pass that if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth." So we understand that there was a covenant that the Most High God is making with the children of Israel. He's telling them, look, if you keep these laws and these statutes and commandments, then you'll be above all people on the face of the earth, right? So we understand that there's a benefit to this thing, but we also understand that there's a negative part when you jump to verse 15 on down, right? So verse 15, and it says this: "But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all these commandments in his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee," right? So now we understand. Now we're starting to, understand that this covenant is that the Most High made with the children of Israel is if they keep his commandments, then pretty much they'll be on top. But if they don't keep these commandments, they're going to be in the bottom, right? Or they'll be cursed, right? So now when you understand scriptures that say pretty much, "I've set before thee life and death, choose therefore life," now we're starting to pretty much understand what the circumstances are with the children of Israel and the Most High God, right? So let's actually grab that real quick. Should be still be in Deuteronomy. 30. It should be Deuteronomy 30, right? in verse 19, it says this, right? I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live. So understand the Most High God has made this covenant with the children of Israel. Life being, if they stand in the blessings of the Most High God and obey the Most High God, they'll live, right? That's why the Most High God is giving the choice. And death being, if they don't keep the commandments. These are the only these are the only standards that the Most High God has made in this covenant that he made with the children of Israel, right? Verse 20, that thou mayest love the Lord thy God, and that thou mayest obey his voice, and that thou mayest cleave unto him, for he is thy life and length of thy days, that thou mayest dwell in the land which the Lord sware unto thy fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give them, right? So when you go back to Deuteronomy chapter 28, right, you see in verse 1 it says that you're going to be verse 2 it says it's going to be all these blessings are going to overcome them and overtake the children of Israel, right? And we see this being a thing that the Lord has done to the children of Israel when they did obey. But then you go down and you see scriptures like Deuteronomy 28:15, where it says, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee, right? And then you start to see that these curses are things that will happen to the children of Israel. Like in verse 45 it says this. Now I'm not going to go through every scripture, I just want to bring up everything in regards to prophecy, right? And it says this, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall overtake thee, shall pursue thee and overtake thee till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and statutes which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever, right? So when you look up the word a sign, right, it's an object, quality, or event whose presence or occurrence indicates the probable presence or occurrence of something else. So you're going to see these curses upon you, right? Because they're going to be a sign upon you and your seed, and it's going to be an indication of something else. What is it going to be an indication of? We're about to see, right? So when you go to Deuteronomy 30 in verse 1, understand what I just told you. What is a sign? A sign is supposed to be an occurrence that is an indication of something else. In this case, the signs would be the curses and the blessings that were on the Israelites. These would be a sign in the Israelites in the last days. A sign for what? And this is what we're about to see right here, right? And it says this, and it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations whither the Lord thy God have driven thee. So it's telling you that the Lord, when all these things that happened to the Israelites, the blessings and the curses, these signs, these occurrences, that was a part of the law, like scriptures like you're going to go into Egypt again with ships, your children are going to be sold for bondmen and bondwomen, and nobody's going to be able to and you're going to want to get them, but you're not going to be able to get them back, which we're going to go through. And scriptures that's telling you you're going to go into captivity, into another nation. A nation's going to come and eat up your crops and your food, and you're going to have to do nothing about it. You're going to have evil eye against your brother and your wife and your children. These curses are going to be upon you, the children of Israel, forever, not for no reason, but for a sign. And these signs is for them to call them to mind among the nations. I'm going to read verse 1 again. And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all nations, whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee, and thou shalt return unto the Lord thy God. So what is remembering these curses going to do to you? It's going to give you the opportunity to remember yourself, and to remember and call them to mind among the nations, so that you can return unto the Lord thy God. How do you return to the Lord thy God? It's going to explain it. And it says, and shalt obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart and with all thy soul. So these curses that were upon you, they were upon you for a sign and for an occurrence of something else to happen, right? And that sign was for you to remember, these curses in the last days, so that then you can turn to the Most High God, so that then he can turn your captivity, right? That then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all nations whither the Lord thy God hath scattered thee, right? And when you jump down to verse 5, and it says this, and the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and he will do thee good and multiply thee above thy fathers. So we see that obviously this is the first prophetic sign to show we be in the last days, and I'm gonna continue to explain that, right? There'll be things that will go along with it, right? So when you go to the book of Baruch chapter 2 and verse 30, it tells you this, for I knew that they would not hear me, because it is a stiff-necked people, but in the land of their captivities they shall remember themselves. How do they remember themselves? I just told you, because of the curses that would be on them as a people. So this is the first prophetic sign that you're in the last days, will be the Israelites being in the land that's not theirs and calling to mind the curses that would be upon them. But not only calling these things to mind, they will also be keeping God's laws and turn to the Most High God in truth and sincerity, so that then the Most High God can turn their captivity, right? So let's keep reading. And they shall know that I am the Lord their God, for I will give them an heart and ears to hear, and they shall praise me in the land of their captivity, and think upon my name, and return from their stiff neck and from their wicked deeds, for they shall remember the way of their fathers which sinned before the Lord. So we understand that the Israelites would discontinue from this heritage, because these curses would be a reminder for them to turn back to God. You see what I'm saying? So when you see scriptures like Jeremiah, right? Jeremiah chapter 17 and verse 4. And it says this, and thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not, for ye have kindled a fire in mine anger, which shall burn forever. So we understand that the Israelites would lose their identity. We also understand that this is something that is not new to the Israelite belief system, or to the Israelite culture or heritage, that they would be losing their identity, right? When you go to the book of Second Maccabees, right, and you go to chapter 6, and it says this in verse 6. Let's start at verse 5, and it says, the altar also was filled with profane things, which the law forbiddeth. So they were commanded to do things that were contrary to the law, obviously being alienated from the law, right? Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient feasts, or to profess himself at all to be a Jew. So this is during the times of Antiochus Epiphanes, putting Greek Hellenization and Greek ways on the Jews at this time, where they no longer would call themselves Jews, but they would call themselves Greeks. You see what I'm saying? That's why when you read Mark 7:26, you see the Canaanite woman, although she's not an Israelite, she is identifying herself as a Greek because of the Hellenization period, where they Hellenize everybody, telling them not to go by their actual ways, but to follow the ways of the Greeks. You see what I'm saying? And you see these things happen to the children of Israel, right? So let's keep going, right? What does it mean when the Lord says He's going to return their captivity, right? It means He's going to take them out of their land of their captivity because they turn to the Most High God. This is something that has to happen in future prophecy. But when does it happen? Let's go to the book of Joel, chapter 3 and verse 1. And it says this, for behold, in those days and at that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations. So understand this, the same time period that the Most High God is going to gather, bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, the children of Israel together, He's going to gather all nations. Remember that, right? So let's get to what we have written, right? Or pulled up. Let's understand this for a fact, right? We have two ethnic groups that are among the most impoverished groups in the Americas, right? You have the so-called Black and Hispanic people. Now, as you can see up here, I typed up on Google, why do Hispanic people speak Spanish, right? As I showed you in the book of Second Maccabees chapter 6 and verse 6, that the Jews were not allowed to call themselves Israelites, right? So now you see the same thing kind of happen here, right? So it says this: why do Hispanic people speak Spanish? And it says Spanish is spoken throughout Central and South America because these are regions colonized by Spain after Columbus discovered the New World. The colonists and conquistadors brought the Spanish language with them as they conquered the local populations and established their rule in that area. So we see that there's one people group that's in the Americas right now that do not at all follow their ancient heritage. They're being called Hispanic, which is not which goes back to being coming from Spain. They're called Latin Americans, which go back to Latin, which is not even Spanish in the first place. You see people like this going through these things that are not even that a majority of the people in Latin America speak Spanish more than they do even in Spain. You see what I'm saying? So this is all due to colonization, the same as it was with the Jews in the time of the Greeks, right? And you have another one: why do African Americans speak English? Right? History: African American English began in as early as the 17th century, when the Atlantic slave trade brought West African slaves into the southern colonies, which eventually became the southern United States in the late 18th century. So we do understand that so-called Black and Hispanic people in the Americas. Now again, you have Haitians that spoke French that speak Creole. You have Native Americans that spoke English. I'm just picking out two demographics of people that would be Israelites. Obviously, those are also Israelites. Haitians are Jamaicans, anybody of Caribbean or Indian descent in the Americas as well. Native Indian descent in the Americas would be Israelites, right? So you see that there's people here that are being oppressed, and this would kind of make me want to, move forward to looking into like ChatGPT and seeing what they had to say, right? And here's the conclusion I came to, right? Or the conclusion that they asked. So I asked them pretty much, identify the most oppressed racial groups in the Americas, and this is what they said. Identifying the most oppressed racial groups is a complex and subjective task, as various groups have faced different forms of oppression throughout U.S. history. However, African Americans and Native Americans have historically endured significant systematic challenges. Here are 3 reasons explaining how these came to be true. Now again, remember where I'm coming from. I'm reading the book of Joel chapter 3 and verse 1, where it says that the Most High is going to turn the captivity of the children of Israel. I've already laid the foundation that it would be a people that would lose their identity, that would be following another culture's identity, and that would be pretty much oppressed, or that would be cursed, right? So now we're going to go through these people and see these people in the same land, and see how this holds up, right? And let's look at African Americans. It says transatlantic slave trade, right? The forced migration of millions of Africans to the Americas as part of the transatlantic slave trade subjected African Americans to centuries of brutal slavery, where they were dehumanized, exploited, and denied basic rights. So we can obviously go to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, and verse 68, right? And it says this: And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there thou shalt be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Again, let's just real quick understand what it means when it says that they will be brought back into Egypt again with ships. Remember that idea remember that the scripture we pulled up in Exodus chapter 1 and verse 13, where it says that the things that they went through in Egypt, the taskmasters, the working in the fields, things like that. The Most High said that the Israelites will be going back to that with ships. They'll be going back to that same Egypt with ships. We also understand that when you go to Exodus chapter 20 and verse 2, it says, I am the Lord your God, thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. So we understand that the land of Egypt is synonymous with bondage, right? Now, the word bondage has kind of taken a new form nowadays, so I'm just going to type it in and see what we can get out of it. Bondage. Oh, there we go. Look, the state of being enslaved. So, Egypt is a mental representation for the Israelites of a state of being enslaved, right? So when you go to Deuteronomy chapter 28 in verse 68, it tells you that you'll go back into this what? This Egypt again with ships. Meaning you're going to go back to this state of being enslaved again. But the state of being enslaved, you're going to go this way with ships. You're going to be brought back into Egypt again with ships. You're going to be brought back into bondage, into slavery again with ships, right? And you're not going to, not the same way that you thought you would go, but a different way you're going to Egypt. And there you'll be sold for bondmen and bondwomen, and nobody shall buy you, right? So again, we understand the word bond means to be pretty much bound together. But let me see. Bondman, a serf, a slave. So you're going to be sold for bondmen and bondwomen. You're going to be sold for slaves, but nobody shall buy you. No man shall buy you, meaning nobody's going to redeem you out of the circumstances that you're in, except for who the world will call Christ, right? So that's obviously a plain curse that that would represent the African Americans in America today. This is a sign that African Americans look at right now, right? Jim Crow era segregation. Following the abolishing of slavery, African Americans faced the era of Jim Crow laws, which enforced racial segregation, denied them of equal opportunities in education, employment, and public services. This institutionalization, racism, perpetuated systemic oppression, right? Speaking of systemic oppression, where do we see that written into the scriptures, right? Where do we see them being in a position where they're low, right? Let's stay in Deuteronomy, obviously, and let's go to verse 16. It says this: "Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in this field." So the Israelites will be cursed in the city and in the field. They would be put in a low estate. They would be cursed economically. In the city and in the field, they would be put at low behind the nation which follows them, right? Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store, right? So we understand that the Israelites will be in a low estate while they're in the land of their captivities, right? Let's go to verse 19. It says this: "Cursed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and cursed shalt thou be when thou goest out." And this is what you see even in regards to the segregation era, where, so-called black people had issues with financially and being what you would call blessed in the city and the field, economically speaking, right? Which you could argue segregation was definitely better for us, because I would say the same thing. I would say integration also even enhances our cursing in the field and in the city, right? Us being cursed economically, right? So also, and I'm probably gonna go to the scripture again, where it says this. This is Deuteronomy 28, and let me see. Matter of fact, I'm just gonna keep going for time's sake. Mass incarceration and persistent inequality. The legacy of slavery and Jim Crow laws contributed to enduring economic disparities, limited access to quality education, and systemic racism. Mass incarceration disproportionately affects African Americans, perpetuating cycles of inequality and hindering economic advancement. Again, that would literally go back to Deuteronomy chapter 28 in verse 16, right? So now another scripture that comes to mind would be the book of Isaiah, chapter 42, and we can go to verse 22, and it says this: "But his own people have been robbed and plundered, enslaved, imprisoned, and trapped." And that's what you see happening with this, right? When you look into mass incarceration and persistent inequality, this is what you would call systematic oppression, right? The legacy of slavery and Jim Crow laws contributed to an enduring economic disparities, right? Limited access to quality education, systemic racism. You see how the limited access to quality education can lead somebody to prison, in regards to the school to prison pipeline that people speak of in regards to mass incarceration and systemic racism. But it also says mass incarceration disproportionately affects African Americans, perpetuating cycles of inequality and hindering economic advancement. And that's what you see happening to so-called Black and Hispanics in America today, right? So let's keep reading. But his own people have been robbed and plundered, enslaved, imprisoned, and trapped. They are fair game for anyone, and no one to protect them, no one to take them back home. And that's the life right now for Black and Hispanic people right now. Who will hear these lessons from the past and see the ruin that awaits you in the future? Now we're going to see how this happened. Who allowed Israel to be robbed and hurt? It was the Lord. Why? Because we sinned against him. Against whom we sinned, for the people would not walk in his path, nor would they obey his law. So we see how the so-called African Americans will be going through these same things, right? Let's keep going. Native Americans, forced removal and land disposition. Native Americans experienced forced removal from ancestral lands, such as the Trail of Tears, resulting in the loss of their territories and disruption of traditional ways of life. Treaties often violated, leading to further disposition. Right. So let's see what where that's found in the scriptures. Right. We go to the book of Deuteronomy. Right. And we understand really what happened during the Trail of Tears. You see that. You see pretty much that they really didn't regard anybody, whether they're old or younger, right? But let's keep reading. Deuteronomy 28:33, and it says, the fruit of thy land and all thy labor shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always, so that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. So we understand that the northern kingdom, they will be going through pretty much issues to which another nation will come in and benefit off the things which they already built, right? So let's keep going. Let's go to verse 49. It says this: the Lord shall bring a nation against thee from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of old, nor shew favor to the young. And what is he going to do? And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land, until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee neither corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kind, or the flocks of thy sheep, until he hath destroyed thee. Let's get back to it. So we understand that they lost everything. Their ancestral lands were taken. Their heritage was taken. These are things that you find being told that would happen to the Israelites. Boarding schools and cultural suppression. Native American children were forcibly sent to boarding schools where their cultural practices, languages, and traditions were oppressed, contributing to the erosion of cultural identity and intergenerational trauma. So understand, look, it says that Native American children were forcibly sent to boarding schools with their cultural where their cultural practice, languages, and traditions were suppressed. Meaning they would go somewhere forcibly against their own will and the will of their parents, and they'd be brought away. That's another law that's found. That's another curse that will be found in the Israelites. Mind you, this is completely off. I didn't write down any notes. This is completely off of putting through the Spirit, right? And when you go to Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 30, what is it? 20. Let me see, Salakia. 32, Salakia. Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 32, and it says this: thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. So now we understand that the children of Israel, their children, would be given to another people, and they would have nothing. They could do nothing about it. They would just lose them, and they can only cry about it. And that's when you look into children, to Native American children being brought into to boarding schools. They were completely different from how they first got there. You see what I'm saying? And their parents could do nothing about it. A lot of times it's said that these boarding schools, the parents would pitch tents outside. You see what I'm saying? Where they would have to just so they can be closer to their children. These are things that you see happening to the Israelites. Again, when you see that the children of Israel would lose their heritage, like I told you, thou even thyself shall discontinue from thy heritage. That's what these children will face, right? And another one, you go to Deuteronomy 20:64, and it says, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even to the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. So now you see Native Indians and Black and Hispanic people serving gods which neither they nor their fathers have ever even known, right? Ongoing challenges and economic disparities. Despite efforts to maintain cultural resilience, Native Americans continue to face economic disparities, limited access to quality health care and education, challenges in preserving their cultural heritage, ongoing issues of land rights and sovereignty also contributed to their struggles. Now, who do you think this comes from? The people that are oppressing them, right? And this is something that you see from the time that the conquistadors came over to the pilgrims, even until now, how white people have come to the Americas and lifted themselves above Black and Hispanic people, right? And so in this same case, when it comes to the Northern Kingdom Israelites, you see things like this, right? Deuteronomy 28 and verse 43, and it says, "The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low." How else am I going to? Who else could that apply to? A stranger that is within thee is going to come above thee very high, and you being brought very low. And he shall lend to thee. Isn't there an issue with Native Indians having issues with being economically stronger? Who do you think controls economics in America? So-called white people, the strangers that came to their land, that lifted themselves up while they became low, right? And it says, "And he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail," right? That's when we get into the signs of the curses. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee and overtake thee till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not to the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. So again, these Israelites will be going through certain things, and these curses are going to be a sign upon them. So the fact that these things even happen, this became history to so-called Black and Hispanic people. But this becoming history became a sign of who the children of Israel are, right? Again, now let's get back to my point. To show that the children of Israel would not have an identity in the land by any means necessary, and they would follow pretty much the gods of the other nations, right? And they would be only oppressed always. That's what you see happening to the children of Israel, right? But let's go back to Joel chapter 3 and verse 1. It says this: "For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem," we understand that the Israelites, their captivity being brought back, meaning them being taken out of the land of their captivity. Remember what comes with this: them having to remember themselves in the land of their captivities, and them having to realize that they have to turn towards God and keep his commandments. Them remembering the curses and the blessings that were on them at one point in time, and that they both have to turn to the Most High. Now you're probably wondering, well, how are Native and Indian and Black people, how are they both the same nation when there's no real connection of them, right? Now the short answer, we can just grab it real quick, and in 2nd Esdras chapter 13, and I know it's going to be a long video. I didn't expect it to be, but and it says this: 2nd Esdras 13 and 14 says, "Those are the 10 tribes which are carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Osea, the king, whom Salmanasar, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, so they came into another land." This is them being brought into Assyria. "But they took counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where neither mankind had dwelt." This is talking about the 10 tribes of Israel, which I would consider as the Hispanic and Native Indian people, being brought to Assyria because they were kicked out of the land because they were in idolatry, right? It's then saying that they took counsel among themselves where they would no longer follow the ways of the heathen, but they would go to a land where never mankind had dwelt. This time period, a further country where never mankind had dwelt, that they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. And they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river, for the Most High then shewed signs for them, and held still the flood till they passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half, and the same region was called Arsareth. If you look into Arsaruth, many people speculate that this is the Americas. There are many documentations that I'm going to do a video on soon about the Northern Kingdom of Israel being the actual Israelites that speak about how Arsaruth was actually attributed to America, right? And it says this: then dwelt they there until the latter time, and now when they shall begin to come. That the Northern Kingdom, the people that went to a land never mankind had dwelt, they would be in that same land together. They would be in that same land up until the time of restoration, right? So what does that have to do with anything? Let's go to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 3 and verse 17. And it says this: and at that time they shall call Jerusalem the throne of the Lord. At what time are they going to call Jerusalem the throne of the Lord? Obviously the time of restoration, right? When the Israelites are recognized as being the top of the nations, right? And all nations shall be gathered unto it, to the name of the Lord, to Jerusalem. Neither shall they walk any more after their imagination and their evil heart. We understand that this is talking about the Israelites walking under the bond of the covenant, the new covenant, where they would keep God's commandments, right? What's going to happen in those days? In those days, the house of Judah shall walk with the house of Israel, and they shall come together out of the land of the north to the land that I have given for an inheritance to the fathers. I mean, they will both be in the land together. So if the northern kingdom went off into a land where never mankind had dwelt, and they would be there until the last days, but then somehow during that same last days they would be brought out of that land together with the southern kingdom. How did the southern kingdom get there? So now we look at curses like Deuteronomy 28 and 68, where it says that the Israelites will be brought into captivity with ships, right? And then both remembering these things, calling these curses to mind, and learning the captivity together. That's the only way it can make sense for both being in a nation together and both being oppressed together at the same time. Mind you, in the curses apply to them. Show me two nations of people in the same land today where they're both being oppressed together, and you can find 6-7 scriptures that apply, or curses that are only supposed to be applicable to the Israelites that apply to them. And there's many more curses that apply to them as well, right? So let's keep going, right? Let's get back to Salakia, Book of Joel, and this is gonna come by quick. That was just the main part I had to build up. But that's the first reason that the children of Israel will be oppressed together in the land of captivity, and turning from the captivity and turning to the Most High in the land of the captivity as well, right? So let's keep going. 3 and 2. Okay, behold, okay, so at the time the Lord is going to turn the captivity of the children of Israel, what's going to happen? I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people, right? And for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. So the time you see the Israelites waking up, turning towards God in a foreign land and the land of their captivity, the Lord is also going to be gathering all nations, right? So now when you look at what's going on now, right? Salakia, I don't know what that is. It's folly, right? Okay, so I didn't mean to get to this yet, but let's keep going. So now when you look at nations like what? Putin ally says world is on the brink of World War III. When the Lord said he's going to gather every nation together to fight against the Lord, I'm going to make this point sound very clear, Lord willing, if you just bear with me, right? So at the time that you have Israelites in the land of their captivity, the Most High God is going to be gathering all nations together. Now when you read Joel, the book of Joel chapter 3, he explains what it is that how exactly he's going to prepare them to come and see the Lord, right? Again, he's going to gather all nations and will bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, and I will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and part of my land. Let's up to verse 9. He says this: proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war. He's telling the Gentiles to prepare war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears, and let the weak say, I am strong. This is the mentality that the Most High God is putting on these other nations at the same time that the children of Israel should be waking up and keeping His commandments in the land of their captivity, in the land that they're oppressed in the land in which the heritage that they were known to have is not their actual heritage, right? In this same land, these things will be happening, right? So He's telling you that all nations, the Gentiles, the nations, He's telling them to prepare for war. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. These are agricultural tools being used for violence and warfare. A spear and a sword are used for warfare, right? And He says this: assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. So this is the mentality. The Most High wants them to get ready for war. Do they have to know exactly what it is that they're preparing for war? Absolutely not. And I'm going to show you exactly why they don't know why they're going to war, right? But understand that the Most High God is preparing them for war. So when you see things like Vladimir Putin saying, allies of Vladimir Putin saying that the world is on the brink of World War III, these are people getting ready for war. People are getting ready to fight together. This is going to be, and look, this isn't just a few nations. This is the entire world. The world is split up in two now. You have BRICS, and you have NATO and the EU getting ready to go to war with each other. You see what I'm saying? So this is what you see going on, right? Let's keep going, right? Mind you, them being got together to fight against the Lord, right? So that the Lord can plead with them, right? This is the sole purpose, right? So let's keep going. And it says this: put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, get you down, for the press is full, and the fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. The valley of decision, the valley of Jehoshaphat, the valley of Yahweh's decision, Yahweh Shaphat, right? The Lord's decision, is a place in Israel where they're going to fight against the Lord. The land of Israel is where the heathen are going to fight against the Lord, right? But it's not going to be how they think it's going to happen. It's not going to go down the same way that they think it's going to happen. Here's how it's going to happen, right? Book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 13. And okay, watch this. And it says this: and that he held neither sword nor instrument of war, but that the rushing in of him destroyed the whole multitude that came to subdue him. This is the interpretation. So we're going to speak on the multitude that the Lord destroys, right? And it says, behold, the days come when the Most High will begin to deliver them that are upon the earth. Who is he going to deliver, everybody? The Israelites from the land of their captivity. And what is he going to do? He shall come to the astonishment of them that dwell on the earth. So, although the Most High God is preparing the nations to fight against each other, He's going to come into their astonishment. They're not going to expect Him. So why would they be getting ready to fight against the Lord knowingly when they're going to be astonished when He comes? This goes to show you that they're not going to have a clue what's going on. And the verse, and as I keep reading, is going to explain it. So the spirit that the Most High God is putting on them, I'm going to keep explaining. This is also written in Revelation as well. But the spirit that the Most High God has put out is a spirit of them pretty much leaving agricultural duties and focusing on war. That's why you see the fear of World War III going up, right? Let's keep reading. And he shall come to the astonishment of them that dwell on the earth. These are the heathen. And one shall undertake to fight against another, one city against another, one place against another, one people against another, and one realm against another. This is going to be total world war chaos. And the time shall be when these things shall come to pass, and all the signs shall happen, which I shew thee before, and then shall my son be declared, whom thou sawest a man ascending. This is who the world calls Christ, right? And watch this. And when all the people hear his voice, every man shall in their own land leave the battle. They have one against another, And an innumerable multitude shall be gathered together, as thou sawest them, willing to come and to overcome him by fighting. This is the Lord gathering the nations to the valley of Jehoshaphat to fight against the Lord, but it wasn't to their own understanding. So you see nations right now. So at a time period where the Israelites would be in the land of their captivity, calling them to mind the curses, remembering themselves, and turning to the Most High God. This would be also around the time where the Lord would be putting a spirit out for all nations to get to be and have a spirit of war and of fighting, so that they can then unknowingly fight against the Lord, right? And it says, "And the time shall come when these things shall come to pass, that and the signs shall happen which I have shewed thee before, and then shall my son be declared." Okay, I read that already. Salakia. A new multitude, okay, overcome by fighting, but he shall stand upon the top of Mount Zion, right? So again, we understand that this is talking about the Valley of Jehoshaphat, but this is also speaking about, when you go into the book of Revelation, chapter 16, these are speaking about the same thing, right? And this is what gets me to my next point, right? But matter of fact, let me get my points in regards to us being in War 3, and that being the thing that happens before the coming of the Lord, right? It says this: 3 Putin allies warn of imminent world war, global jihad against the West. These are things that you obviously going on. We're in the middle of World War III. These things are happening. Is Trump right about World War III? Here's why we should be worried. Now, again, I'm not going to go to all these articles because, I want to make this video relatively quick. But let's keep going. And it says, on the brink of the Third World War. All of these articles are were written within the past few months, except for this one. I think this was in last year, right? So on the brink of the Third World War, with global order at risk of rupture, diplomats must reignite torch of peace, says First Committee Chair, right? So understand that all these nations, at a time where the Israelites are waking up in the land of their captivity, all nations should be going to world war. That's another prophecy that's going on right now, right? And then we're going to get to another prophecy, right? So let's keep going. Salakia. This is Revelation chapter 16 and let me see. And verse 12. And it says this: And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up. Prophecy says that that at a certain point in time, I don't know when, that the water is going to be dried up in the Euphrates River. Right? Why is this going to happen? Let's keep reading. Right? That the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. So that the ways of the kings of the east might be prepared. And this is what you see happening right now. Right? So we're going to speak on these same these spirits, right? And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon. Who is the dragon? The dragon is who you would call NATO in the EU. Not only NATO in the EU, but all of Europe, right? Because we know that the latter end of the dragon is what you would call Gog and Magog, which is in Russia. Chief Prince of Meshech, which is the word for Meshech, is called Moscow, right? And out of the mouth of the beast and out of the mouth of the false prophet. These 3 unclean spirits are coming out of the mouth of what? Europeans, right? For they are the spirits of devils, working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and the whole world, to gather them to battle, to the battle of the great day of God Almighty. So the battle against the Most High God, when does this happen? When are people going to be gathered together? During the time that the Euphrates River is dried up. Also during the time that all nations will be gathering together to fight against the Lord. Also around the same time that the children of Israel will be remembering themselves in the land of their captivities and turning to the Most High God so that He can turn their captivity. Lord willing, everybody's following along. Let's keep going, right? So now we get to this, and it says this: the Euphrates River is completely drying up, and something terrifying is happening, right? Euphrates River drying up in 2023, once teeming with life. Now the Euphrates River resembles a desolate wasteland. This was in 2023. It's once gushing waters have dwindled to a mere trickle, leaving behind a cracked and parched riverbed that stretches as far as the eye can see. The ominous silence that fills the air is only broken by the anguished cries of desperate inhabitants struggling to comprehend the magnitude of this disaster unfolding before them. Well, we can comprehend it. You know why? Because we have the truth. We understand that this is all according to the will of the Most High God. This is prophecy. This is a third sign. First sign, the children of Israel will be waking up in the land of their captivity and turning to the Most High God, and keeping His commandments in the last days, remembering the curses that the Most High God put on them. 2, there will be all nations getting ready to go to war. And 3, the Euphrates River will be drying up. All 3 of these things you can see right now happening right now and happening simultaneously in the scriptures, right? So let's keep going. The reasons and meaning behind the Euphrates River drying up in 2024 outlook. Okay. Key points. The top reason Euphrates River drying up is low rainfall along with droughts. Iraq and the surrounding area also suffer from climate change and rising temperatures. More than 7 million people are affected by the river drying up. Crops are failing, which has led to about 800 families leaving the surrounding villages. The Christian Bible, Euphrates River is significant. When it dries out, it is a sign that the end times are coming. Wow. I mean, I didn't even know it said that. It says in the Christian Bible, it's not a Christian Bible, it's the Bible, it's the holy collection of books that the Most High has ordained, Salakia, in these last days to keep the Israelites with knowledge and understanding in these last days, right? And to comfort them and to keep them stable, right? The scripture tells you that wisdom shall be the stability of thy times, right? In the Christian Bible, the Euphrates River is significant. When it dries out, it is a sign that the end times are coming, right? No, it's a sign that the end times are here, right? And you know, if you want to look into this, you can look into it. My whole point is to show that this is a sign that the Most High God is showing you that these are the last days. You see what I'm saying? Let's keep going, right? And we can just, watch these quick little videos. Salakia.
The State Department and the National Security Industrial Complex. One of the reasons I was the only president in generations who didn't start a war is that I was the only president who rejected the catastrophic advice of many of Washington's generals, bureaucrats, and the so-called diplomats who only know how to get us into conflict, but they don't know how to get us out. Been right about everything. None of this excuses in any way the outrageous and horrible invasion of Ukraine 1 year ago, which would have never happened if I was your president, not even a little chance. But it does mean that here in America, we need to get rid of the corrupt globalist establishment that has botched every major foreign policy decision for decades, and that includes World War III has never been closer than it is right.
This is what I meant to get.
World War III has never been closer than it is right now. We need to clean.
World War III is never closer than it is right now. We're the closest to World War III we've ever been. Let's keep going.
I was one of the 2 selected. We're trained to kill people.
If I'm not mistaken, this is the writer of the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, Some Rich Billionaire.
Okay.
Do you have a message for the world about war? Like there are people who are listening to you right now about you speaking about a world war. Is there a message?
It's coming. You've heard of Taiwan?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What are they after there?
The semiconductors,
Yes.
raw material.
So about 20 years ago, I was living in Portland, Oregon.
I think I might have missed this, Salaki.
Every country has a school for military officers. I was one of the 2 selected. We're trained to kill people. Okay.
Do you have a message for the world about war? Like there are people who are listening to you right now about you speaking about a world war. Is there a message?
It's coming.
So he's asking pretty much, is there any message you want to send to the world about a world war coming? And he says, it's coming. he understands that we're on the brink of a world war. So you have Donald Trump, you have this Asian billionaire, and who's next? I don't even remember. And a doomsday clock. Slocky, I didn't even want this one. But that's neither here nor there. Let's see. No, we don't have to get into this. Actually, this will be our next point. This will be point number 4. Poverty rates for blacks and Hispanics reached historic lows. Okay, this is pretty much the next one is that black and Hispanics would be oppressed in the land together, right? And that's another sign that they will be together in the land. I brought up Jeremiah chapter 3 and 17, which was actually a precept that goes into the fact that the Israelites will be oppressed together in the land of their captivity, which they haven't been since the time of Egypt, right? So poverty rates for black and Hispanics reached historic lows in 2019. All right, inequalities persist despite decline in poverty for all major race and Hispanic origin groups, right? So let's read. In 2019, the poverty rate for the United States is 10.5%, the lowest since estimates were first released in 1959. The poverty rates declined between 2018 and 2019 for all major race and Hispanic origin groups. 2 of these groups, blacks and Hispanics, reached historic lows in their poverty rates in 2019. The poverty rates for blacks was 18%, for Hispanics it was 15%, right? Let's keep going. Let me see. Reflect the gains. Okay. All right. The story low poverty rates for black Hispanic reflect gains. It's an Hispanic group. However, okay. All right. So now we're going to see. So right here is a graph right now that is showing you. This is the U.S. Census Bureau current population survey and annual social and economic supplement. It says the ratio of proportion in poverty relative to total population by race and age. You see what people are underrepresented in poverty and the people who are overrepresented in poverty. If somebody's overrepresented in poverty, it means more people are impoverished than are not, right? So when you see this, the total, you see Hispanic and black people are the only 2 demographics that who are overly represented in poverty in America. People under 18, black and Hispanic people who overrepresent poverty amongst their race in America. Age 16 to 64, same thing. Age 65 and older, even more. You see what I'm saying? So it shows that black and Hispanic people represent, or more black and Hispanic people represent poverty in the Americas than they do wealth. And this is a sign of them being oppressed together, being the tail and not the head, as we read in Deuteronomy 28, right? So we can also go to the book of Jeremiah again, and 50, and we can go to verse 29 if I'm not mistaken. Salakia. Okay, 33, and it says this. Jeremiah 15:33, and it says, "Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Salakia." It says, Salakia. Bear with me. All right. All right. So it says this. Thus saith the Lord of hosts. This is Jeremiah 50:33. And it says, "Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were pressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go." Right? They were pressed together, and all that took them captives refused to let them go. Their Redeemer is strong. They're going to get redeemed after this point of them being oppressed together, right? The Lord of hosts is his name, because he's going to be the one that in general is going to be the one that chiefly redeems us, right? He shall thoroughly plead their cause, that he may give rest to the land and disquiet the inhabitants of Babylon. You see what I'm saying? So the children of Israel are going to be oppressed together. That's another sign. They're going to be remembering themselves in their captivities, but they're going to be oppressed together, which is a different sign. As we read already in Jeremiah chapter 3 and verse 17, they're also going to be oppressed together. You see what I'm saying? And that's what you see happening in the scriptures. And that's what you see happening in real life, right? This is Jeremiah 3 and 17. And at that time they shall call Jerusalem the throne of the Lord, as we read. Chapter verse 18. In those days the house of Judah shall walk with the house of Israel, and they shall come together out of the land of the north to the land that I have given them for an inheritance. That is the redemption of the children of Israel out of this land we call Babylon the Great, which they were not in ancient Babylon together. I'm not going to go into great detail about it. I have a video that'll explain that perfectly. 2024 Doomsday Clock announcement. Another sign that we're in the last days. When you understand that where we're at in regards to the clock or the time of the earth, it's funny how the Israelites have their understanding of them, but you have Esau on the left hand side also with his countdown of the end of the world as well. You see what I'm saying? But we understand that the world for us and the end of the world for them are two different, come to two different conclusions, right? So let's keep going. Okay. Right. So, as you see, with the Doomsday Clock, it's still 90 seconds to midnight. I was expecting 60 seconds to less than a minute to midnight, but apparently they just want to keep it consistent. But that is a sign for sure that the timing we're in is waxing old, and I'm going to expound on that, right? And here's how, right? So in this article, it goes on to tell you the time, roughly a timeline of the earth, right? You may not agree with it. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to give you signs and reasons why we're in the last days, right? So when you look into this, you'll see that the timeline between Adam and Jesus' birth spans several millenniums, provided ample time for the progression of generations and the unfolding of historical events. According to the genealogical records found in the Bible, it is estimated that Adam was created by God around 6,000 years ago. From Adam to Jesus were about approximately 4,000 years. The calculations based on the genealogies mentioned in Luke 3 and 23 and 38, which traced the lineage of Jesus back to Adam. Now, am I a fan of the genealogy of Luke? I would much rather use the genealogy of found in Matthew. But we do understand that from Abraham, because it starts off from Abraham and goes to Christ. But we do understand from Adam to Abraham is also will be the same genealogy, right? So in regards to that, it says that you can prove that pretty much from the time of Adam to Christ is about 4,000 years, and from Christ to us about 2,000 years, given that it's been a 6,000 years period since the time of Adam. And according to the scriptures, according to the scriptures, man was made on the sixth day. Right? This is... Watch this. Let me see. Alright, so like here. Watch this. And this is the, fifth day, okay. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. The fifth day was over, right? And it says this. And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind. And it was so. And God made the beast of the earth after, and this is Genesis chapter 1 and 24 and 25. And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and the cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God said, let us make man in our image. Was man already created prior to this? Yes. That's why he's making them in his image, because man was created prior. Now you see the Most High putting man to a certain degree where he's pretty much put up higher than being just a regular beast. And I'm going to show that, right? Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So the Lord created man on the sixth day, and later on, he gave man dominion on the earth, right? So when you go into the word for creature, Salakia. All right. Bring forth the living creature. Watch this. Living, alive, a green, flowing flesh of water. Right? So this is something being alive. Creature. Soul, self, life, creature, person. The Lord created people on the sixth day. He also exalted people and gave people dominion on the sixth day. So, people were created on the sixth day, right? This is going to make, a lot of people may not agree, but this is going to make, you're going to see my logic to how I come to the conclusion I come to, right? This being said, Adam was created on the sixth day. That's the conclusion we come to as Israelites. Also, let's also get to this point real quick. Verse 27, it says, so God created man in his own image, and the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. There were multiple people. Watch what he says. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth and subdue it. He already made the commandment for man to be fruitful and to multiply, right? And to replenish the earth, right? And the reason, and understanding why I call Adam, it's going to explain it when I jump to Genesis chapter 5. And it says, and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living creature that moveth upon the earth, right? Man was already created, man was already exalted, and man was commanded to be fruitful and multiply. So man was already reproducing prior to Adam mating with Eve, right? And when you read Genesis chapter 5 and 1, this is going to explain it. This is the book of the generations of Adam, and the day God created man, right? In the likeness of God made he him, male and female created he them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam, in the day when they were created. So Adam isn't just one person, Adam is a people. Now there may be one chief Adam that was above the trees in the garden, but nonetheless, male and female were called Adam at that time, right? Which just means man, right? Mankind, things of that nature, right? If I'm not mistaken, right? So my point isn't necessarily to point that out, but it is to show that man had already been created on the sixth day. When you understand from the time of Adam to the time of now was about 6,000 years. According to the scriptures, the earth will be about 12,000 years old from the time of creation until now. How do we come to that conclusion? When you look into the days, the fifth day and the sixth day, the fifth day being finished and the sixth day being started, these days are 1,000-year spans, right? So when you go to, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 8. 1 Peter 3 and 8. 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 8. Is it 3 and 8? Salakia. No, it is 2 Peter 3. right. Okay, yeah. 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 8, and it says, "But beloved, be not ignorant for this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day." So, understanding that one day unto the Lord is 1,000 years for us, each day of creation was 1,000 year period, which would be 1,000 years from the beginning of time to 1,000 years until the creation of Adam was 6,000 years, right? And 6,000 years after Adam, which brings us to the time we are now, which would be at 12,000, which would be the Earth, which would show that the Earth is 12,000 years old. This is not something that is a new understanding, but this is the truth, right? So when you go to 2 Ezra chapter 14, this is also explained as well, right? So when you Salakia, 2 Ezra chapter 14 and verse 10, we'll start here, right? And it says this: "For the earth has lost its youth." Salakia. "For the earth has lost its youth, and the times begin to wax old." Understand, this is talking about the age of the earth, right? "For the world is divided into 12 parts, and 10 parts of it are gone already, and half of the 10th part." So 12 parts of the 10 parts are gone already, and half of the 10th part. "And there remaineth that which is after the 10th part," meaning 12 parts are in the earth, and this is talking about the age of the earth. 12 parts are in the earth. 9 and a half, that is 10, and half of the 10th part are already passed, and there remaineth that, and there remaineth that which is after the half of the 10th part. So remaineth 2.5 parts. I take the position that these are these are 1,000 year periods, right? This is also during the time of Ezra, which was about 500 years prior to the time of Christ, 2,500 years from the time we are now. 9,500 years prior to that was the creation. A full completion of that would be 2,500 years, which would be right now, right? And then you start speaking on it. So now when you see the signs happening, these things start making a lot of sense. So we're going to go to Salakia, right? When was time of Ezra? So approximately about 440 BC, roughly around 500 years prior to the time of Christ. Sometimes some people say about 500, some people say 400. 5th century BC is around that same time, right? During the time of Ezra. This is the book of 2nd Ezra, right? Understanding that this is just a rough estimate of when it was written. There are multiple different, some people say 50 years, give or take, right? Esdras, 480 440 BC, also called Ezra the Scribe. In Chazalic literature, and Ezra the priest was an important Jewish scribe and priest in the early Second Temple period. So we understand that is roughly around 500 years prior to the time of Christ, 2,500 years for the time that we're now. That would be the rest of the 12 parts. 9.5 parts, 9,500 years, would be at that period in time. Let's keep reading, right? So it says this: "Mind you, it is estimated, according to the genealogy of Christ, that from the time of Adam to the time of Christ was roughly about it was roughly about 4,000 years, and from the time of Christ to now would be 6,000 years. Where Ezra has estimated from 500 years prior to Christ has estimated that this time would be the last days, right? So let's keep reading, right? "For the world is divided into," let's keep reading, "for the earth has lost its youth, and the times begin to wax old." The times wax old. "For the earth is divided into 12 parts," right? These 12 parts are ages, are 1,000 year periods. "And 10 parts of it are already gone, are gone already." At the time of Ezra, these 10 parts had already been finished. And half of the 10 parts, which is really 9.5 parts. So these 9.5 parts were already finished. And what did he say? "And there remaineth that which is after the half of the 10th part." So he's telling you Everything after the 9.5 parts is left, right? So now when you see 2,500 years later, which is right now, you see the time that we're in, the things that are happening. Now we understand that the world is old, right? Now therefore set thine house in order and reprove thy people, comfort such as be in trouble, and now renounce corruption. Let go from thee mortal thoughts, and cast away the burdens of man, and put off now the weak nature, and set aside the thoughts that are most heavy unto thee, and haste thee to flee from these times, because these are the last days. And not only is it written in history, it's written in the scriptures, and prophetically speaking, we are in the last days, to show that from the time of Ezra even to now, 2,500 year period, would literally be show that these are the last times, which we told you would be the Israelites being redeemed, would be all world, the world getting ready for war with Christ unknowingly, would be the Euphrates River drying up, the Israelites being oppressed, and now prophecy, a prophetic timeline showing you that now will be the last days, right? Let's keep going. Bros ass, okay, doomsday clock. Okay, like I said, from the time of Adam to Christ, approximately 4,000 years, right? It is estimated from this time, that is, I'm sure this wasn't written anything over 100 years ago, December 25th, 2023, very recent, right? This article was written a month ago. It was written a month ago, right? 6,000 years ago from now was the time of Adam. 6,000 years prior to that was the time of creation. So the earth will be 12,000 years old according to this timeline, right? So let's keep going. Salakia. Now let's look at the world's oldest tree, right? So now when you understand that there was a flood, right? That there was a flood not too long ago, that the world's oldest tree can't be tens of thousands of years old, but relatively a few thousand years old, we can then come to the conclusion that, hey, the earth or the growing earth can't grow that long. So that could validate the scriptures, right? Trees can live anywhere from less than 100 years to more than a few thousand years, depending on species. However, one species in particular outlives them all. The Great Basin bristlecone pine, Pinus longeva, has been deemed the oldest living tree in existence, reaching an age of over 5,000 years. See what I'm saying? So now we understand that, and many people speak on the fact that from the time of Adam unto Noah and the time of the flood was roughly 1,000-year period. Again, I'm not saying that this exact time period is directly on point. See what I'm saying? These are just rough estimates. Now the prophecy that I brought you to, that was more so of a direct of the standard, because that's prophecy, right? Let's keep going. What is the oldest civilization in the world? The world's oldest civilization, the first and earliest civilization we can find, is around 4,000 years ago, right? So it says Mesopotamia, 4,000 years or 3,500 years BC, meaning between two rivers. In Greek, Mesopotamia, located in modern-day Iraq, Kuwait, and Syria, is considered the birthplace of civilization. Civilization is not, like Dr. Umar Johnson says, 100,000 years old. That's not proven. You can't find that anywhere in history, right? So, but we can find places like Mesopotamia and findings like the archaeological findings that these nations lived approximately 4,000, 5,000 years ago, right? Let's keep going. And this is just, more into, and people speak on the Sumerians. Again, I told you these are just estimations, right? So how is the world's first civilization? We believe Sumerian civilization first took form in southern Mesopotamia around 4,000 BC or 6,000 years ago, which would make it first urban civilization in the region. Mesopotamians are noted to developing one of the first written scripts in 3000 BC, wedge-shaped marks pressed into clay tablets. Again, this is where these are just rough estimates of when people believe these things happen. Let's keep going. Okay, the next point. The next point that we're in right now has to do with the book of Daniel, chapter 12. and verse 2. And again, this is really just off of one. I just grabbed a bunch of articles that spoke on it. I'm going to build on it as we go, right? Perfect. Let's start at verse chapter 12 and verse 1. It says this: And at that time shall Micah stand, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as was never there, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. Again, this is a time of deliverance. This is a time of Michael the archangel standing up, the prince of the great prince that's standing for the children of our people. We see that Michael the archangel is going to fight against the dragon in the book of Revelation chapter 12, which you take on as Esau, the so-called white man. If you want to look at Herod the Idumean, when it speaks of him wanting to take Christ as soon as he be born, there's a metaphoric type of speech that speaks on that in Revelation chapter 12, which shows that the great red dragon will be the Edomites, because it's showing the similitude between Herod and this great red dragon trying to eat the woman's child as soon as he be born, right? And then Michael the archangel will be fighting against them, right? So let's keep going. And many of them shall sleep in the dust of the earth, and many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall wake. That's the regeneration. Some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. And they, and they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. So at the time of deliverance, right, as it spoke in the first verse, where the children of Israel are going to be delivered, as I already showed you, turning back to the Most High God in the land of their captivity, what's going to happen? But thou, verse 4, Daniel 12 and 4, but thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even till the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. So, the time of the end, as we read in verse 1, is the time that Israel is going to be delivered, is a time period where the book is going to be open. The book is going to be open. Same time. Right? So the same time when these things will happen, will be the same time that the book is open. And the knowledge is starting to be increased. Not only is it spiritual knowledge, but it's also knowledge of the earth. Right? And I'm going to show you how. Right? Let's read that again. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book. So the words have been sealed. Even to the time of the end, many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. Even to the time of the end, the time that the Israelites are going to be delivered, when they shall have to go to the words of the book, the book that's been sealed, and start to gain understanding according to the scriptures of who they are. That's the knowledge that's going to be increased on one fold. But it's also knowledge being increased on another fold in regards to the knowledge of the world, right? Let's read the article. What is the knowledge age, right? The world's next step will be driven by artificial intelligence, okay? The knowledge age is an era in which artificial intelligence processes information for humans and turns it into knowledge and, in some cases, decisions. In the endless sea of digital information that defines the 21st century, AI can sort through the noise and deliver knowledge to us with the precision of GPS coordinates. The knowledge age will prove an era that transforms who we are and how we live, and it is an era well on its way. So it's just pretty much an article that explains to you that we're in the age of knowledge and of growth and things of that nature. That's the age that we're in now, right? And this is exactly the time that we're in. This is knowledge being increased, right? The knowledge age, an era in which artificial intelligence empowers, enhances, and facilitates human knowledge. Human knowledge becomes swift, direct, and muscular. We will have access to answers rather than questions, conclusions rather than data, truths rather than trends. Sheesh. And that's the time that we're in right now, where people have access to so much knowledge, where people are running to and fro to get all this knowledge everywhere. And that's what you see going on right now in these last days. The information age. To discover how we eventually get to the knowledge age, we first have to reflect on the information age. And in order to to trace the origins of the information age, we go all the way back to the 1970s when the internet was developed by the U.S. Department of Defense for military purposes. Over the next 2 decades, institutions began to use internet for data storage and private communications. So again, this is the time that we're in. We're in the information age, which the book of Daniel does tell you is going to happen during the time where thy people shall be delivered. That's when the book is going to be unsealed. That is the time of the end, right? Let's keep on going, right? And this is pretty much, and we're pretty much almost finished, right? Here's another one. Here's another example, and this is going to be found in the book of Revelation. Chapter 6 and Salakia. And mind you, that this is when you get into the 5th seal, which we're in right now, and looking at everything happening, I'm gonna do another video, Lord willing, on the seals that are pretty much that which seal we're in, and every seal, breaking down every seal if it be the Most High's will, right? So let's get into it, right? And it says this: and when he had opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th beast say, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him, and power was given him unto them over the 4th part of the earth, to kill with the sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. There will be a time that a pale horse would pretty much be ruling in a certain part of the world. It's called the 4th part of the earth, and it's going to be strictly for killing with the sword, with hunger, and with death. This place is going to be a deadly, deadly place, right? When you understand what death is, let's go to the book of Habakkuk, right? It's not saying that this pale horse is literally death itself, but based off of its actions, it has a lot to do with death, right? So let's go to the book of Habakkuk. Salakia. Habakkuk chapter 2 and Salakia. Bear with me. All right. Let's see. Verse 5. Salakia. And it says this: yea, also, because he transgresseth with wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. This is what you would talk about. This is a proverbial speech for Babylon the Great, when it speaks of this man pretty much transgressing with wine. We all know that the whole earth is drunk off the wine of the wrath of Babylon's fornication, right? And therefore the people are mad. Matter of fact, let's I can either grab it from Revelation or Jeremiah, but I think I grab it from Revelation 18, right? And it says this, Revelation 18:3, and it says, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. So we understand that in these times that there will be a nation pretty much, or a place that is the 4th part of the earth, that is going to be known as death, and hell follow with it. I mean, it's going to be known for total, complete death and destruction and things of that nature. What more places built off of blood like America, like Babylon the Great, right? And even if you continue staying in Revelation 18, it tells you the things that pretty much would be found in Babylon the Great, right? And it says this. Let me see. And Revelation 18:11, it says, the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore, the merchandise of gold, silver, precious stones, pearls, fine linen, purple, silk, scarlet, and all thine wood, and all manner of vessels, and all manners of vessels of precious wood, and of brass, and of iron, of marble, and of cinnamon, and odors, and ointments, and frankincense, and wine, and oil, and fine flour, and wheat, and beasts, and sheep, and horses, and chariots, and slaves, and souls of men. Babylon the Great is going to be it's prophesied to be a very deadly kingdom. A kingdom that kills and is very careless. Right? So, when you go back to Habakkuk, you see the same principle being established. Yea, also because he transgresses with wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth he at home. And that is America's issue right now. They're always in everybody else's business. They want to move further east into Russia. And Russia, that's the only reason why Russia is going to war with Ukraine in the first place. Right? Who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death. That is the pale horse. Babylon the Great is the pale horse, and cannot be satisfied, and gathered unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. The wine and the wrath of Babylon's fornication has made all nations of the earth drunken off of her wine, right? Which is really just spiritual fornication, following her ways, right? So when you go to the book of Job, Job also speaks about this same exact thing, right? These same proverbial speeches for Babylon the Great, right? Job chapter 39 and verse 19, it says this: Hast thou given the horse strength? Right, and this is what a representation of the horse that you have, the pale horse. This is a symbol of war. Canst thou make him afraid as the grasshopper, the glory of his nostrils as terrible? He pawed in the valley and rejoiceth in his strength. He goeth on to meet the armed men. He mocketh at fear and is not affrighted. Neither turneth he back from the sword. The quiver rattleth against him, the glittering spear and his shield. He swalloweth the ground with fierceness and rage, neither believeth he that it is the sound of the trumpet. He saith among the trumpets, Ha ha, and he smelleth the battle afar off, the thunder of the captains and the shouting. The horse is a very warlike animal, right? Whether people may associate it for war now, that's what it was always known for. So when you read about a pale horse, this horse is going to war. See what I'm saying? So like in Revelation 6, right? And it says, And I look and behold a pale horse, and the name that sat upon him was death. This pale horse, this pale horse is a representation of war, right? Obviously, when you think about pale, you think of something decaying and rotting and things of that nature. This is what John the Revelator is seeing. And his name that sat on him was death, meaning he was as death. His works was like death, and hell followed with him. The same thing that it says in Habakkuk, right? And power was given unto him. Power was given unto the same demon over the fourth part of the earth. That's the part I wanted to focus on. To kill. This is what he's going to do to kill, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. This is what the time we're in right now, right? Prior to the fifth seal, we could either be transitioning to the fifth seal or we're in the fifth seal. But this is what happened in the fourth seal, right? So now let's watch this clip.
You almost have to go like this, because Europeans, of course, didn't discover the New World. They didn't discover other parts of the world. But I tried in this book to immerse myself and readers in this Eurocentric cartographic frame of mind. So keep that in mind as we have the conversation going. This, if you don't know it already, is the Waldseemüller map. The original is on display in the Jefferson building in the Great Hall. If you haven't been over there to see it already, I strongly urge you to go do it. There's nothing like FaceTime with the real thing. There's only one copy that survives in the world. It's this one. It's probably about that big. It's 8 feet by 4.5 feet, so that's a reasonable facsimile of the real thing. It might even be a little big.
This is supposed to be one of the earliest maps of the full world. You see Africa, you see Asia and Europe, and this is right here would be Latin America right here. And this would be the first ever depiction of the Americas, right, in the Walter Miller map.
Uh, so please go over there at some point. As John and John both suggested, I didn't know anything about this map or the history of cartography when I started. In 2003, when I was an editor and a writer at The Atlantic in Boston, opening my mail, I came across a press release from the library announcing that for $10 million it had bought what it called America's birth certificate, the Walter Miller map, the map that gave America its name.
Remind you, this is a map that gave America its name, the Walter Miller map, which, when you look into it, was created by Amerigo Vespucci.
That $10 million was the most the library had ever spent on anything. It was also almost $2 million more than had recently been paid for an original copy of the Declaration of Independence. And that kind of got my attention. I'd never heard of the map, I'd never seen the map, but the library seemed to think it was its most valuable piece, and the market even seemed to think that it was worth more than an original copy of the Declaration of Independence. So I wanted to find out more, and at this point I was thinking maybe I would do an article, a short piece for The Atlantic. So I did some research and got the basics of the story pretty quickly. Early in the 1500s, in the eastern part of France, in the Vosges Mountains, there was a small group of scholars, among them the mapmaker Martin Waldseemüller, and they came across letters by Amerigo Vespucci and at least one early sailor's chart showing the coastlines of the New World, and they decided that what they were reading about and what they were seeing on these charts was not a part of Asia, as most people had assumed it was, but in fact was a new continent. People traditionally had thought of the world as having three parts, Europe, Asia, and Africa. Waldseemüller and his colleagues decided that this was a fourth part of the world.
The fourth part of the world, America. The fourth part of the world. That is prophetic. And speaking of things like how the earth, how prophecy pretty much works, the understanding of the world's first map of the Americas, they understood the America as the fourth part of the world.
Hence the title of the book. Because they'd made that decision, that it seemed to represent a fourth part of the world, it needed a name, just like the other continents had names, and they came up with the name America in honor of Amerigo Vespucci.
And that's pretty much it. I'm gonna read this real quick summary real quick. First, I'm gonna read the title: "The Fourth Part of the World: The Race to the Ends of the Earth, and the Epic Story of the Map That Gave America's Name." In 1507, Martin Walter Mueller created a map that depicted what was then known as the fourth part of the world, the other three parts being Asia, Europe, and Africa. 1,000 copies were printed out. Only one remains. Discovered by accident in the Library of German Castle in 1901. 102 years later, the Library of Congress purchased it for $10 million. Okay, we understand that part, right? Jump down. The result is the fourth part of the world, the race to the ends of the earth, and the epic story of the map that gave America its name. We understand that the three parts of the earth is Europe, Asia, and Africa. The fourth part is America, which is in biblical prophecy. It's the pale horse, which we understand as being Babylon the Great. When you speak of certain similitudes to its resemblance to death, and its resemblance to and its similarities to having almost a certain way of world domination, and that's what you see happening with Babylon the Great, and that's what you see happening with the fourth part of the earth, and when you read things like Habakkuk and Revelation. All right, so let's keep going. And this is what you call the TNO map, which is pretty much a traditional map of the three parts of the earth, right? The earliest printed example of a classical TNO map, illustrating the first page. Okay. A TNO map, or TO map, is a type of medieval world map representing the physical world as described by the 7th century scholar Isidore Seville and his etymologia. Let's keep going. And it says, the world is called round, after the roundness of a circle, because it is like a wheel, Because of this, the ocean flowing around it is contained in a circular limit and is divided into three parts, one part being called Asia, the second part Europe, and the third Africa. That's how they understood the earth until the Walter Mueller map came out, to now come to the understanding and come to the conclusion of the earth having four parts. You see what I'm saying? So now when you look at prophetically speaking, right? Not done yet, almost done. And this should be it. Let's read. And it says this: and I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. Meaning, this is the person, the people ruling these people are going to kill at a mass level, right? Kind of like when you think of Johnny Manziel, people call him Johnny Football because he was so good at football, right? Same thing. This man was so good at killing that they called him Death, right? And power was given unto him, unto them, over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with the sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. First, I want to grab this quick precept in Genesis chapter 25 and 27. 27, Slakia. And I think it's 39, 27, 39, if I'm not mistaken. And Isaac answered and said unto him, 38, and it says, and Esau said unto his father, hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. When you look at America prior to colonization, America was beautiful. And how did the so-called white man get it? By killing at a mass level, right? Very simple. That's death in itself. And by the sword shalt thou live. Let's not skip that part. And it says, and by thy sword shalt thou live. Esau living, like when people think about ball is life, you see what I'm saying? And a person living basketball, that man is a walking bucket. It's identifying the fact that he is so attached to basketball that you might as well call him a bucket because he's so good at it. Same thing with Esau. He is going to live by the sword. That's why they call him Death. He's going to live by killing. And shall serve thy brother, and it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. See what I'm saying? So now we understand that this death and this killing is coming from none other than who the world will call the so-called white man, who is Esau according to the Bible, right? And it says, and when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of the Lord and for the testimony which they held, right? Now, after this, you have people dying for the word of the Lord. And it says, and they cried with a loud voice, saying, how long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? And what does it say that happened to these people? And white robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that thou should rest for a little season until the fellow servants also and their brethren that should be killed as they were should be fulfilled. This is a time period when pretty much the Israelites will be killed. This is the fifth seal. That's why I said we're in the fifth seal right now, because right after everything that happened before, the fourth part of earth being filled with murdering and killing, now you would see persecution of the saints. Now we may be leading in towards the fifth seal, but nonetheless we're in between. We're leaving the fourth seal, going into the fifth, right? So now you see that there's a time period where Israelites will be killed for the word of the Lord. This is what you will call Jacob's trouble. You find this in the scriptures when you read Jeremiah chapter 30, right? Which also has to do with the salvation of the children of Israel, right? Jeremiah chapter 30 and verse 6, and it says this. Verse 5, and it says this, for thus saith the Lord, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear and not of peace. Ask ye now, and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins, as a woman in travail, and on all faces are turned into paleness. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble. but he shall be saved out of it. So the time of Jacob's trouble, where Jacob is going to be killed for the word of the Lord, he's going to be saved out of this. Right? Let's keep reading. For it shall come to pass, saith the Lord, that I will break his yoke from off thy neck, and will burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him. So we understand that these same things going on in the fourth part of earth, which leads to the death of the children of Israel, right? Or the death of the people that are standing stiffly for the word of the Lord, that then salvation is going to come from that, right? And I'm going to grab that precept after this, right? For alas is for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. For it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord, that I shall break his yoke from off of thy neck, and will burst thy bonds. The strangers shall no more serve themselves with thee, but they shall serve the Lord their God, and David their king, whom I will raise up unto them. Therefore fear thou not, O my servant Jacob, saith the Lord, neither be dismayed, O Israel, for lo, I will save thee from afar, and thy seed from the land of thy captivity. Remember, I told you this all has to do with the Israelites being delivered from their captivity. All these things are synonymous, are happening together. Israelites being killed, being delivered from the land of their captivity, all the same thing. And Jacob shall return, and shall be in rest, and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. That's what it's talking about, the Israelites being brought back into the land of their captivity, right? For I am with thee, saith the Lord, to save thee. Though I make a full end of all the nations whither I have scattered thee, yet will I not make a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure, and will not leave thee altogether unpunished. See what I'm saying? So we do understand that at this time period, the Israelites would be getting delivered. So when the Israelites are going through Jacob's trouble, when they're getting killed for the word of the Lord, they're going to be delivered. And this is something even Ezra even saw in a vision from the Most High. If I'm not mistaken, it's 2 Ezra 4. Salakia, let me see. It's 2. Let me see. Okay, here we go. Second Ezra chapter 2. Here we go. And it's in verse 42, and it says this. 2 Ezra 2 and 42, and it says, I, Esdras, saw upon the Mount Zion a great people, whom I could not number, and they all praised the Lord with songs. And in the midst of them there was a young man, a man of high stature, taller than all the rest, and upon every one of their heads he set crowns, and was more exalted, which I marveled at greatly. So I asked the angel and said, Sir, what are these? And he answered and said unto me, These be they which have put off the mortal clothing. Pretty much they went under the bond of the covenant, and put on immortality, and have confessed the name of the Lord, a name of God, and now are they crowned and receive palms. Right? That white clothing that they have, that's the immortal clothing. That's the immortality they put on, right? Then said I unto the angel, What young person is it that crowned them, and giveth them palms in their hands? So he answered and said unto me, It is the Son of God, whom they have confessed in the world. Then began I to greatly commend them that stood so stiffly for the name of the Lord. So if you weren't getting killed, why would you have to stand stiffly for the name of the Lord? What's the purpose of standing so stiffly for the name of the Lord if there's no persecution? You see what I'm saying? So this would be pretty much the understanding that during the time of the fifth seal, which would be Jacob's trouble, which would be the Israelites being killed for the name of the Lord, and standing stiffly for the name of the Lord prior to being delivered, that would be shortly happening after a land that is the fourth part of the earth had established itself as being a land that has killed many, many people. You see what I'm saying? And we know the judgment for that in Numbers chapter 33 and verse 35. Pretty much you cannot pollute a land in where you are, for blood that defileth the land, and the blood of the land cannot be cleansed by the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. That is Numbers 33 and verse 35, right? We understand that's the judgment for America, to be just for these things, right? But Ezra said he commended them that stood so stiffly for the name of the Lord, right? And these are the people that most of them are the people, or a portion of them are the people that died for the Lord, right? And that's what we see happening, right? So let's grab this real quick in the book of Revelation. Again, Salaki. And when the fifth seal, and when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of the Lord and for the testimony which they held, and they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? And white robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, until their fellow brethren, their fellow servants also, and their brethren should be killed as they were, should be fulfilled. And that would be future prophecy and deliverance to the Israelites, right? So then we go to Revelation 7 and 9, after the 144,000, and look what he says. After this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude, which no man could number, of all nations, kindreds, peoples, and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. So the same thing, the people that are still so steady for the words of the Lord, these are the same people that died for the words of the Lord, that have palms in their hands, standing before the Lamb. In verse 10 it says, And cried with a loud voice, saying, Salvation to our God, which sitteth upon the throne and upon the land. So again, these are 7 prophetic reasons why the Israelites would be prophetic reasons why we're in the last days. First one, the Israelites waking up in the land of their captivity. Another one, the northern and southern kingdom being oppressed and land together. You have a global world war, the Euphrates River being dried up, the time of the earth being split up in 12 parts, meaning that earth is being old and getting old, the 4th part of the earth, and the last one would be knowledge being increased. So these are 7 prophetic prophecies that will be happening in the last days. It shows that we're in the last days. Sorry, it could have been a little well put together. This is just something that was on my spirit to do. I put it together as quick as possible, but Lord willing, it's an edifying video. With that, I would like to give all honor and glory to the Most High God, Abanawa Yahweh, by Shema Mashiach Malak Shai. A closing precept real quick. Let's just grab it real quick. Matter of fact, I'm going to do a few precepts very quickly. Just bear with me real quick. Let's just go to Revelation chapter 19 and verse 10, just because this is the type of time that we're in right now, right? So this is Revelation 19 and 10. It says, And I fell at his feet to worship him, and he said unto me, See thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Jesus, the testimony of Yahushai. Worship God, for the testimony of Yahushai is the spirit of prophecy. So stay in prophecy. Keep your mind in prophecy, right? And, Salakia, let's go to Sirach chapter 39. And verse 1, it says this, But he that giveth his mind to the law of the Most High, and is occupied in the meditation thereof, will seek out the wisdom of all the ancient, and be occupied in prophecy. See what I'm saying? So you gotta keep your mind occupied in prophecies. Keep your mind occupied in these prophecies, because this is what's going to keep us stable in these last days. Let's go back to Revelation chapter 22 and verse 7. And it says this, Behold, I come quickly. Blessed is he that keepeth the sayings of the prophecy of this book. So with that, I'd like to give honor and glory to Most High God Yahweh. keep enduring the faith. I just got this quick precept in verse 12. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every man according as his work shall be. Verse 14. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter into the gates of the city. For without her dogs, and sorcerers, and whoremongers, and murderers, and idolaters, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie. Right? So, with that, I give honor and glory to the Most High God Yahweh, Lord willing, is edifying video through the Spirit. Stay motivated, stay in the truth. Call Allah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Mashiach, Malak Yahushat, the Wada, Banawi Yahweh, Kwam Yasharallah, Shalom.